welcome to Silver Goose Farm Stories. I'm your host, Mama Goose, and you've come to our podcast where we share stories from the farm. The sad ones, the happy ones, the funny ones, and just our day-to-day happenings. I hope you enjoy our story today. Since this is my first solo episode, I thought we'd start off by sharing a segment of an interview that I did with Axia Woman of the Week. They gave me an opportunity to talk about what we've done to become homesteaders. You can read the entire interview on axiawomen.org. That's Axia Women, AXIAWOMEN.org. I hope you enjoy the interview, and I hope you enjoy this story. Let's just get right into it. In 2017, my husband and I moved our family from Silicon Valley into the Sierra Nevada foothills. Though we moved onto an old turkey farm, our property had not been used as a farm in any capacity for many years. There was little to no dependable fencing, no infrastructure aside from a tool shed, only a small herb garden and some fruit trees that didn't bear fruit. I was a girl from the suburbs and had never really raised any animals other than my pet chihuahua in high school. When we first moved to our little farmhouse, I did not personally have any ambitions to be a farmer or homesteader or prepper or however you would label this life that we live. When we moved, I was heavily pregnant with our third child, and the year following her birth was one of trying to figure out how to balance a newborn and homeschooling children and just acclimating to our new environment. There was no garden, no animals except for our dogs and the barn cat that we inherited with the house. 2 years later, we finally began homesteading, but at a very slow pace. I gave birth to our fourth child at the beginning of a pandemic, and we had only just started figuring out this journey to self-sufficiency when we were hearing about empty shelves at the store and uncertain supply lines, and we got a simple message from our family's spiritual father that advised us to start a garden and get a few animals and be prepared for an unknown future. I am not a gardener, and in fact, I have a black thumb. But for the past 3 years, I have been expanding my vegetable garden. This means every spring I am killing more animals in a greater space and in higher quantities. But also, surprisingly, things are actually growing. I ordered every imaginable type of seed I could find, whether or not I wanted to eat them. I planted wherever there was space. I made gopher cages to protect the roots of new fruit trees from insufferable rodents. Our dogs kept the deer and turkeys away, but I had to put up netting to save precious seedlings from the flocks of hungry birds that would appear out of nowhere. We needed more cats to combat the squirrels. Our soil needed to be enriched. We needed manure and to make our own compost. We needed wood chips for mulch. We needed to put in fencing and water lines. I needed to be stronger and heavier and have more stamina to be able to push our rusty wheelbarrow up the hills that surround our house. I had to figure out when and how to prune the trees. And then right when I was in the thick of weeding and harvesting the gifts of our spring garden and finally thinking that I had that figured out, I had to start planning a winter garden, which I had never known was a thing. We were studying our growing zones and local flora and mapping out a permaculture food forest, another new concept. I was studying how to forage and what can be used medicinally for us or for our farm animals. And all of this was a little bit overwhelming. In fact, a lot overwhelming. It was initially a panic for me, and I still have to stave off a lot of anxiety as I plan each season's garden because I feel the weight of responsibility to sustain our family through this life, of making the time, effort, and money spent on everything truly worthwhile. However, I discovered that whatever I couldn't grow, I was blessed to be able to trade with our neighbors or to purchase produce from local farms, which has helped cover the gaps where my own gardening skills are lacking. And also, I have learned to put the rest into God's hands. He sees what we are doing. Our next step was acquiring animals. We got guinea fowl to eat the swarms of bugs that exist in the country. They can decimate anthills and eat thousands of ticks a day. A flock of guineas can kill rattlesnakes, and apparently they taste like pheasant if you can catch them. And they will sit outside your husband's office when he's on a conference call and screech for hours. We got laying hens. I cannot tell you the joy of discovering that first egg. Many city ordinances allow you to raise a few chickens in your backyard, which I highly recommend. I also recommend that if you have chickens, try to contain them a little bit better than we do, because an Easter egg hunt every single day is fun, but also not very efficient. Once you start getting a few animals on your farm, they kind of multiply in an unpredictable way. We were gifted ducks and turkeys. We got 2 pigs and then 4 pigs, and now are venturing into breeding pigs. We got meat chickens, and then we decided to do a crazy thing and get a milk cow. I don't want to say that we were unprepared for any of the animals that we have on our farm, but I personally don't recommend our method to most people. So many weekends were spent tying together recycled bunk bed frames and old fencing panels and wood pallets to keep animals contained until we could figure out a better solution. We discovered that electric fencing doesn't work in the summertime here because California drought makes the ground hard as concrete and it doesn't conduct electricity. So we had to have a solution for that. I have looked out the window to see a cow gently chewing her cud on our doorstep, and pigs helping themselves to pumpkins out of my garden or taking a nap in the garage. Chickens and guineas and sometimes ducks have many parades around our house to the delight of my children, but my husband is patient and has an affinity for animals that comes with his gentle soul, and he just coaxes them back into wherever they're supposed to be, and then all is well. And then we strengthen fences that weekend or sketch out plans to build a better animal space, and we do it. So over the course of almost 3 years now, I think we're finally getting somewhere. In raising our own meat, we have decided to butcher our animals at home. It has become a way to get the neighbors together. We've learned together and shared in the bounty. My children are not squeamish, and they have a personal understanding of animal anatomy, but also give high respect to an animal throughout its life and being grateful for the meat that it provides for us. We feed our family and our friends, and still our chests are full of food. Raising your own meat is the most productive part of our homestead. Our cups runneth over in more ways than I can say. The homesteading life is not convenient. Things are slower, but not easier. My girls read about the pioneering days, and we put those skills to use, often because we have to. During wildfire season, and just because rural communities are often forgotten and marginalized, the power would shut off, and then we'd have no electricity. But even more concerning, no water, because our pumps don't work. We were learning to survive with or without our modern luxuries, and the first thing we learned was that everything takes time, and therefore you have to plan ahead. Sourdough takes a full day to make. Yogurt takes hours to culture. Butter needs to be churned, and you can't take that first bite of hard cheese for months, if not years, after you make it. If we have an abundance in the garden, we can and dry and freeze and preserve what is extra for a time when we could go without. We save every bone and scrap of meat to make into stocks and broths and sausages that line our pantry. There are strange experiments of bubbling liquids on my kitchen counters and living growing cultures of things in my fridge. We are learning how to make soaps and salves and medicines and teas and tinctures and all of the mysterious things that might be useful to us. My daughters save seed from the fruit that they eat and line little pots of potential trees on our windowsill, and I've discovered that I need to have bigger and more windowsills. They have learned about heirlooms and hybrids and grafting and rootstocks and propagating. They collect herbs and forage and learn botany and mycology, geology and biology. They are learning weather patterns and animal husbandry, how to make ink from oak galls and baskets from grasses, how to pitch a tent and how to start a fire, how to stay safe from animals and plants. They also never wear shoes and track dirt and ash and who knows what else through the house. Their faces are always covered in dirt and sticky with something. My youngest loves to collect eggs. She is getting the hang of not cracking them before making it to the house. My 4-year-old can climb a tree like a monkey and sit there all day eating fruit. My girls share their apples with the cows and the pigs, and they are right behind me in their boots as we give out the feed and fill troughs, brush down coats, and check fence lines. We've hatched out little chicks, we have farrowed piglets, and we watch Cookie deliver her beautiful little bull calf. We have experienced unintended death, mourned at the loss, and gotten up to try again. Every day is a learning experience, and I am always studying the next step in this farm life. We are blessed to be able to figure this lifestyle out. If something fails in our garden, we can still go to the store. We plan better for the following year. It's not easier or cheaper to raise your own food, but it is incredibly freeing to walk past that part of the store because we don't need it, and because what we have is better and healthier. There is a wealth of knowledge and hundreds of years of pioneers and different cultures that precede us. Those who have lived without water or electricity or without the luxuries of what we consider now to be basic necessities. This life gives us the opportunity to keep those memories alive, to share in that wisdom, to not be afraid to fail, and be grateful in every success. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Silver Goose Family Farms. I hope we'll see you again. Until next time. You can learn more about us by visiting our website at silvergoosefamilyfarm.com.